Welcome back. In the previous video, we took the Jog Start animation and replaced it with a Jog Start Blendspace. And in that Jog Start Blendspace, we have a Blendspace 1D with an offset yaw, which we're calculating in our anim instance. And it goes from -180 to +180, and it blends between Jog Start animations based on this offset yaw. Now, I assigned a challenge to you to do a Jog Stop Blendspace. Now, you may or may not have run into some challenges, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the process of this and show you that there's something slightly different that you had to take into account for Jog Stop. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to create a Blendspace 1D called Jog Stop Blendspace. So let's right click here in the Animations folder, and we'll go to Animation and Blendspace 1D and choose Bellica Skeleton. Now let's call this Jog Stop Blendspace. Double click on it, and our horizontal axis, we'll go ahead and call this Offset Yaw. We want our minimum axis value to be -180 and our maximum to be +180. Now, we're going to use the Jog Stop animations, so we need to go and get those from the Bellica animations. So go to the Paragon Lieutenant Bellica's animation folder, and we're going to want our Jog Backwards Stop. We're going to drag that into our animations folder and click Copy here. And we also want Jog Right Stop. Copy here, and Jog Left Stop. Here it is. Copy here. Now back in our Blendspace, we can drag in our Jog Stop animations. So for the middle, we just want Jog Forward Stop. We're going to use Jog Forward Stop Trimmed to use our version that we're trimming up. Now we didn't rename our copies, so let's do that. Let's go back to our character animations folder. I'm going to click the X for the filter here. And I'm going to find Jog Backwards Stop and rename this with a underscore trimmed at the end. Here's our Jog Left Stop. Let's add a trimmed to the name here. And here's our Jog Right Stop. Trimmed. Now we can distinguish these from the ones in the Bellica folder. Now in our Jog Stop Blendspace, we have Jog Backward Stop Trimmed. We're going to stick that at the outer edges of our Blendspace, at the outer bounds of offset yaw. And then of course in the middle between the center and the right, we want our Jog Right Stop Trimmed. Here we have it. And then for the remaining section, we want Jog Left Stop Trimmed there. And so that will take care of our Jog Stop animations. Click Save, and now in Shooter Anim BP, instead of play Jog Forward Stop Trimmed, we can use our Jog Stop Blendspace. So drag that in, connect that, and delete the old node. And we're just going to hook in, well, what do we hook in? Do we use Movement Offset Yaw? Let's give it a try. We'll plug that in, and let's test this out and see what it looks like. So we'll start moving to the left, and if we stop, oh, we're still playing the Jog Forward Stop animation. So what's happening here? Let's try this again. Let's go left this time, and we play the Jog Forward Stop animation. So this might have frustrated you when you try to implement this on your own. So what is exactly happening? Well, every frame we're calculating movement offset yaw, right? Well, as soon as we stop moving, then our velocity is no longer to the right. Our velocity vector goes to 0. So there's no longer a delta rotation between our velocity and our aim rotation. That data is no longer valid for the Jog Stop. So what we need to do is we need to save this movement offset yaw before we stop moving. How do we do that? Well, we can go back to our anim instance. And here in shooter anim instance.h, we need to save off the previous frame's movement offset yaw as soon as we stop moving. Then we'll still have that value saved in order to play our Jog Stop animations. So let's create a new variable called last movement offset yaw. It's going to have the same uProperty macro as movement offset yaw. And for our comment here, we're going to say offset yaw the frame before we stopped moving. So we need to save that off. Now back in shooter_anim_instance.cpp, we need to save this value. So we can update it. We can say last movement offset yaw equals movement offset yaw. Now the problem though is when our velocity is 0, we don't want to update this. We want to keep the value from the last time our velocity wasn't 0. This is for saving that movement offset yaw before we stopped moving. So here we can place a check saying if shooter character get velocity. Now the velocity is an f vector, so we want the size of that. So dot size, if that size is greater than 0.f, then last movement offset yaw is movement offset yaw. However, if our velocity is 0, well, then we don't want to tamper with last movement offset yaw. We want to keep that value. We can compile this. And we need to go back to our animation blueprint. And for the Jog Stop Blendspace, instead of movement offset yaw, we need our last movement offset yaw. So we'll plug that in instead of movement offset yaw. Go ahead and compile, save, and let's give this a try. So it's playing the correct animation, but we need to make sure that we trim these correctly. So now comes the trimming part. So first let's take care of jog right stop trimmed. We'll open that up here. And it looks like we're starting off with the left foot down, right foot just behind. So let's scrub through this. And it looks like after we stop moving, we can probably trim the rest of the animation off. So I'm going to remove frames 59 to 96. And she's taking quite a few steps here. We don't need to take that many steps. We really only need a couple of steps. So I would say maybe this final step here, maybe we can start right about here and we can go from there. So let's trim the beginning off. And we'll give this a try. Let's test this out. This is jogging to the right, so we're going to jog right and stop. Ready and stop. It seems like it's playing a little slow. So here in jog right stop, for rate scale, we can scale this up a little. Let's try 1.25 so it'll play a little bit faster. Let's try this again. That looks a little bit better. I think that'll work. Now let's trim our jog left stop trimmed animation. So we'll scrub through, and there's quite a few frames here. So after she stops moving, we can probably stop it right here. So I'm going to trim off 47 to 91. And we also don't need all these steps, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it right about here. So I'm going to trim off 0 to 25. So really there's hardly anything here. It's just, you know, settling to a stop. So let's give this a try. We'll jog left, and that looks pretty good. Now it looks like it's actually playing the animation over when it finishes. So it's looping, and that's not what we want. So let's go back to our shooter NMBP and select Jog Stop Blendspace and uncheck loop here in the details panel. We don't want it to loop. In fact, we don't even want our jog start to loop either. So let's go ahead and go into jog start and set this one to not loop as well. Let's go ahead and play test this again. And that's much better. It's now not looping. And if we run in any particular direction, you'll see that the jog stop animations are even blended together based on the movement offset yaw. So that concludes this video. We took care of jog stop animations by creating a jog stop blend space and blending between the jog stop animations for the different directions. And we used a movement offset yaw for that. But we actually created another movement offset yaw variable called last movement offset yaw, which we only populate when the velocity is not 0. That way, as soon as we stop moving, we've saved that last movement offset yaw so that we can use that to pass into our jog stop blend space. Now, all of this commented out code here is dead code. We're no longer using it. I left it here for a few videos so that you could have this if you wanted to print some things to the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and remove it now as we're no longer using it. Stay tuned. We'll see you in the next video.